Imagine life's challenges as a storm, a force that can either wash us away or spark the change we need. Here, we're the spark that ignites that storm, the fire that fuels it, and the guiding light through it. So, lean in, open your mind, and we'll realize that we are not at the mercy of the storm, but we are the storm.
For years, I searched for answers, tried everything, until I realized healing wasn't something outside of me. It was something within me. And it's within you too. Breathwork, movement, contrast therapy, these aren't just wellness fads. They're your body's way of unlocking the healing it already knows how to do. So the question isn't can you heal, it's will you. I built Reconnect Mind Body to help you answer that. Visit thereconnectlife.com and take the first step.
Welcome to We Are the Storm. I am Ashley, and this is my co-host, Jackie. We are here today, and we are going to talk all things about being the storm. And so let's get started. Welcome.
Thank you. Very, very excited to be a part of this awesome project.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited that you decided to do this with me, because I think that there's a massive amount of impact that we can have with our stories and how we see things, and the power that we have together is just, it's going to create waves.
Yeah, it really is. It's about, and you say impact, right? And that's, I think, really why we're both sitting here, about the impact on other people, but the impact for ourselves, that we've been down these roads. And so I think this is just a powerful way to get people engaged and understanding and get related with how this really plays out in real life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know? And give us better tools for the future storms that we face.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm so excited to jump in. And I know that we've had many conversations about you and who you are and why you do what you do. But tell everybody kind of just a little bit about you and maybe a little bit into that spark that's the driving force for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started my career, as you know, as an executive coach. So I've been coaching individuals in teams and very high levels in organizations for a long time. Love it. I love it. I love working with people. I love being in the place where they're expanding, and just holding the gap for them so that they can fill the gap with their competence and their expansion. Throughout that process, though, I've seen certain things that have arisen, certain patterns, certain themes that keep coming out and coming forward. And so I think what's really powerful is, I think what really is that spark was the moment where I saw that there's themes that really kept coming forward. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to say surprised me, but it surprised me a little bit, because people had gotten really, really far in careers and accomplishments and doing things, by the world's standards, like what's really matters, and really struggled with some serious issues around resilience. And that was the theme that kept coming up over and over again. And so as I was coaching and as I was, gathering tools to pass on to clients to help facilitate their growth and moving past what it was they were facing, I started to unknowingly really start to cobble together a very, very impactful model. And so Wild Fig was born. My partner Travis and I, we started Wild Fig, which is our organization that trains specifically on developing personal resilience. Yeah. I think there's a lot of great tools out there. There's a lot of great information. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, a lot of it's incomplete. And I think, I know me and my experience, certainly, but I think the people that are listening, you've probably encountered that. Yeah. You've probably encountered the feel good, the books, maybe it's other podcasts, maybe it's, memes, things that inspire us. Yeah. They stick with us, but they don't keep us moving. And I think that's the real hallmark of resilience is movement. Being able to have durable resilience means you're able to keep moving. Yeah. And so that's basically how it was formed. Wild Fig has been amazing. And again, it's about building deep root structures in people. Yeah.
I love that thing that you have on your website about ideal conditions, raw potential. Yeah. That quote just stays with me in a lot of the things that I think about, and when I get kind of complacent, or I'm like, yeah, this feels good. I'm like, oh, but am I, hitting my potential? Am I really doing all the things that I could do or can do?
Yeah.
And that turbulence, those storms, really help build those roots. There's a story about trees. They tried to grow trees in a windless environment, and it failed.
Yep.
It failed because the wind was the thing that makes the tree strong.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we both, I was born and raised in Arizona, right? And
didn't know that.
I'm a native. I'm one of the rare unicorns, a native. But early 90s, they had a big project north of Tucson called the Biosphere. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's a massive, very, very expensive science experiment. It's actually in Oracle, Arizona, where they built this absolutely massive enclosure. And it was glass. I mean, it looked like something that would sit on Mars, really. And they replicated, I think, maybe it was 5 or 6 different ecosystems. And don't quote me because this was a long time ago.
Sure.
But my like 6th grade class took a field trip. And we were able to go and tour the biosphere before they closed scientists into it.
Okay.
And what they did was they were able to calibrate ideal conditions inside each one of these different ecosystems so that they could grow food, they could thrive, they could see, could we really like make this environment thrive and be successful, and with the scientists in there. Long story short, the whole thing was an absolute catastrophic failure for lots of different reasons. A lot of them are human reasons. But one of the most important pieces of learning that we took away from that was the exact principle that you said: ideal conditions, raw potential. Those trees that grew in ideal conditions, they never developed the root structures. And they never, rose to their full potential. They never grew how high they were supposed to grow. And I thought, gosh, if there's one thing that big, expensive failure taught us, right, was a really important lesson, though, that we need to learn as people, is because we really do spend a lot of our time and energy trying to create ideal conditions for ourselves, right? We really do. And when we fall short of ideal, we do feel often a sense of failure or less than. And what we really have to do is start reappraising how we look at our conditions.
Yeah. And
are they less than ideal? Because that means that we're optimizing our growth.
Yeah.
Right?
It's definitely a different perspective to look at those things. All those little frustrations through the day, or, job problems or daily problems, life problems, kid problems, all the problems.
Absolutely.
It's a different framework to look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know I come from the resilience conversation from a more of a practitioner, beginning, but I want everyone listening to really get to know you and your journey, because when we met, frankly, I was very, very inspired by your journey with resilience and the fact that you really are the embodiment of what people really yearn for. The self, you really kind of travel in the wilderness. You pick up tools, you set the ones down that don't work. Yeah. And so you have a very different perspective. So I want the listeners to kind of hear that from you.
Yeah, this may take a while. There's lots of stories. There's lots of stories, but we met, for those of you who don't know, which none of you probably do. We met through a mutual friend who we are so grateful he introduced us, and we had a fantastic conversation recently. And I don't know if you knew this, but I had changed my own mindset on meeting people and networking, because I met our friend Scott. Scott, shout out, through a networking thing, and I don't enjoy networking at all. It is very taxing for me. It's very hard. I feel very awkward. I don't always feel like I have the right tools, but I also know that it's very important. And a lot of times people will walk into networking and they're like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And I recently changed my mindset to be, I'm open for whatever is coming for me, and having the absolute belief that it's positive and it's what I need at that moment. And that led me to meet the podcast people. Elisa came out of nowhere. We were both getting ready to leave this networking event. And I had gone in saying, I'm just going to be open to whatever it is. And I met her. And that created this whole line of different thinking and this whole idea. And we've done a couple together for my job. And, it planted the seed.
Yeah.
And then I met Scott. And then Scott opened me to you. Mm-hmm. And here we are, down the line with this incredible journey and this incredible opportunity to share that journey and to share the framework and really be open to it, very serendipitous, if you will. But my story, I have a lot of stories. I come from a background that was not perfect, as many of us have that same thing. Different traumas and different experiences and different marriages and different kids and different states and moving a lot and all of those different things and a lot of personal growth that I needed to do. And I felt as though I didn't have a lot of the tools that I needed or wanted to be able to accomplish that growth. And as you said, it was really me searching for those tools, and the timing mattered. Sometimes there was a tool presented that I wasn't ready for or ready to use, and it had to be presented again. And some of them I just had to keep searching for until I found the right tool, as you said. And there were a couple of really big moments. A friend of mine who I had also met at a networking event got me to go and do a cold plunge, which, if anybody knows me, I loathe the cold. I loathe the cold. My whole family lives in Colorado. I live here because I don't like snow. You don't have to shovel sunshine. Yep. And I don't take cold showers. My husband calls them magma hot lava showers. I don't like being cold. I would have never gotten into that cold plunge before, but timing mattered, and I was at a place where I was ready, and a friend of mine took me, and there was that social contract where you're like, okay, I'm not going to let him down. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it happen. And that one moment was the most transformational moment. I have been to therapy. I have talked to people. I have done different things. There is nothing like dealing with the trauma and the pain in fight or flight when you're in fight or flight, but you're safe. And the place that I went to was Reconnect in Mesa, and the girl was holding on to me, anchoring me. So when I thought that I was going to jump out, I was going to get out, I was going to run, all of those things that are like screaming at you to protect yourself, she was just there like, you're okay, it's okay, breathe. You can't control anything else, but you can control your breath. And that moment, that day, was the day that changed for me, where it had been, life was happening to me. And I got out of that tub, and I know it sounds crazy, but everything shifted, and I was happening to life. It was a Lynch Pin for me, a turning point. And everything else kind of just opened up in a way that was amazing. And a little bit later, to kind of note why we came up with this podcast, my dad gave me a gift, and it was after my cold plunge, which, by the way, was on Friday the 13th.
Okay.
So now I'm actually fond of this day.
Yeah.
My dad gave me a gift, and it was this blanket, and it said, to my badass daughter, when fate whispers, you can't withstand the storm, you whisper back, I am the storm. And that seed aligned with meeting Elisa and that podcast seed. And I remember calling her up and being like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to not only share my story and help other people who maybe have a similar journey to see things in a different perspective that help them become their own storms or realize that they are the storm, whatever they're struggling, whatever they're facing, and have that perspective shift. And also keep learning tools for myself, because now that I'm open, right? And now that all of those pieces are there, I can take on new frameworks, and I can learn new skills, and I can learn new resources that really help me grow even more. And I want that for people. And so our conversation really fit into that because you have such this wealth of knowledge and this complementary perspective to mine that I'm able to shine a light on women and say, I want women to have the tools and the resources to be the storm, because there are a lot of things that we still face, and there are a lot of unconscious stereotypes and beliefs where we're actually hurting each other rather than helping each other, even though we want to.
You bet.
And a lot of conversations that we can have to change that. And I can shine the light on this, and you can shine your bright light on resilience, and where we overlap, just be able to share that with the world and create that impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love how you talked about, the blanket from your dad.
Yeah.
And I love that saying. I mean, that's been something that has been circulating for a while. And I think there's so much power in that statement,
Yes.
from being in the storm, withstanding the storm, to being the storm. So I'm curious about your perspective. What is that shift? What is the shift from withstanding the storm to being the storm?
That's a great question. And I think the shift is different for everyone, right? And I think that we probably all have different shifts. For me personally, they say that your trauma stops aging at the age of your trauma, right? Something to that extent. Don't quote me. But for a long time, I felt as if there was a little girl inside me. And all I wanted was, in this case, my mom to save me. It wasn't a logical thing. I can solve my own problems. I'm an independent girl. But that part of me was still yearning for something that I had wanted for a long time. And in that cold plunge, it felt as though I turned to myself on that level and said, I can save you. It was just the realization that not only can I do everything outside, but I can do the work inside too. And I didn't need anybody else. And I know we say that, and on certain levels, on certain logical levels, that. But for me, and especially I believe people who have trauma, they're separate. The emotional aspect of it and the logical aspect of it. You can look at something and understand it. You can understand that there are perspectives. I understand why the other people did what they did, right? And I can't judge them because I know experience and context matters. If I were in their situation with their tools, with their knowledge, with their background, I can't say I would make a different decision. So on the logical aspect, I can forgive, I can understand, I can empathize, but it's the emotional aspect that is a separate piece. And for me, I can say I can save myself, but it was in that cold plunge that perspective shifted for me, that I can save myself. And that alone just kind of took off all of these, it's almost like ropes that were holding me down, like you're not good enough or you're not worthy. You have to be achievement and excellence and beauty in order for people to love you. And all of those expectations that I feel were sort of externally placed on me, that I had let live there for a long time because I didn't feel like I knew the tools to take them off.
Right.
And then that moment changed them and opened it up. And so I think that for me, that was the Lynch Pin moment. That was the perspective shift. That was, I can save myself. And now from there, I can do anything. And I had a conversation with Cameron afterwards. And I said, my husband tells me that he loves me all the time, right? My son tells me that. My family tells me that. People tell me that. But it was hard for me to believe because I don't think I loved myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think I loved myself because unconsciously I think I knew I wasn't myself. And then when all the ropes came off, it was instantaneous. I love myself. I love all of these pieces, all of these aspects, all of these components, and the pieces that I let go that are no longer me, and the new pieces that come in that are me today or tomorrow. And this ever evolving thing where you're changing who you are because all of the different variables change, right? My son goes from 5 to 6, and that changes, right? My husband, based on his job, that changes. Me, based on my own job, that changes. And so letting go of those things and taking in new things is really that momentum that you were talking about, that forward progress of doing more.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, resilience is really characterized by movement, but also potential.
Yeah.
And it's so impactful when you think about, achieving potential. What's really possible if you do the work, right? You talk about the cold plunge, and, I have to say, when you brought me, so you had your experience, and then we made a social contract.
Yes, we did.
As a native Arizonan, there was no way I was getting into a freezing tub of water. But,
oh gosh, it was amazing.
But I heard about the really important impact that it was having for a lot of people, including yourself. Yeah. And so, again, chasing impact.
Yep.
I was going to seek that out for myself, and so I did it. And I think when you're talking about past trauma, when you're talking about, cobbling together the logical side and the emotional side and how they don't connect, right? This experience, it hit me. There's so much pain that happens to us that's out of our control.
Yeah.
Right? It causes trauma. It causes, emotional disconnection and disconnection within ourselves, a misunderstanding of who we are. And, then that's when we start trying on different versions of ourselves to be pleasing to those people around us, right? But in that cold plunge, it was a pain that we choose.
Yeah.
And it's painful.
Yeah.
Girl, that's 31 degrees. I thought there's like chunks of ice floating around. I'm like, there's just no way I'm in here. But it's pain that I choose, and I didn't choose to jump. I choose to sit in it.
Yeah.
And breathe through it.
Yes.
And yes, the anchoring with Lauren with her hand on me really kept me in the tub. I would love to say it was all me. It wasn't. It's because she had her hand on me.
100%.
And I was grounded. And so it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
But it wasn't traumatic. But it was very painful.
Yeah.
It was.
It was.
It was painful. But it was the pain that I chose. And then I chose to sit with it.
Yep. And
so that in and of itself was a really interesting embodiment of resilience.
Yes.
Because I've been in this game a long time, right? Yeah. Gathering tools and training and teaching and, coaching people again to move past what they think is possible and to really start chasing potential. And that's not always a pleasant journey.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. Resilience is a hard road. It's a very hard thing to develop. It's a hard thing to look at yourself and to listen to what you're doing to yourself.
Yes.
And the assignments, the assumptions, the self-limiting beliefs, the things that we like to lay on top of ourselves that weigh us down. And I use the word like to very intentionally because oftentimes we weight ourselves so that we don't need to show ourselves what we could do. Yeah. The possibility of being great, the possibility of being, my gosh, the possibility of being and achieving our potential can be a scary thought.
Yeah.
Right? I think it comes with weight.
Yeah.
It seems maybe overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I think there's comfort sometimes in staying the same size that we are and not feeling like we need to expand into any gap or any space.
There's a really good quote, and I don't remember it, but it's something about the thing that we fear most is not that we're going to fail. It's that we'll be great beyond belief. And I'm butchering that. Yeah. But I think also a lot of times what I've seen, and I feel I had this for myself, is that your identity becomes wrapped around the pain.
Yeah.
And letting it go means letting you go. And the fear of uncertainty and not knowing what's on the other side of that is sometimes so much scarier than dealing with the pain. And I know I've seen that. I come from, well, I worked a little bit at a chiropractic office before I had my current job. And you can almost see it. Like there's a way out of physical pain, and people won't take it because it's a part of who they am, who they are, and part of their identity. And it's often very scary to go to the other side. And the pain that
you bet,
is easier than the pain that you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think that's what resilience really comes down to. And I think just speaking to this project here, right?
Yeah.
Coming back to really incorporate and let people know that this is why we're doing this, to bring forward different perspectives, different conversations, really important stories of how resilience shows up in different areas, because it shows up differently for everybody.
Yes.
We have a framework. We have a really incredible framework that works, but how that framework plays out is different for everybody.
Yeah.
And how it shows up and how people struggle with it.
Yeah.
Because it's an uphill climb.
Do you also find, and I feel it's this way for me, but resilience even shows up differently in yourself based on whatever it is that you are dealing with. For example, I love our cold plunge story. I remember your face going into that cold plunge.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of pure terror there. But after we had talked about how it really was kind of following that framework and a physical manifestation of it, and being able to see the steps play out in a safe space. Because often you have a framework for resilience or getting through the storm, and you can't use it until you're in the storm, right? And then you're in the storm and you're not able to kind of take this outside look of yourself going through the steps. You're not kind of aware. You're just doing it because there is a storm, right?
You're surviving.
Yeah, you're surviving.
That's it.
But inside the cold plunge, you kind of go through that process and you're able to kind of self-reflect. But I'd be interested to talk about if it plays differently in yourself, because I know every cold plunge that I have, because I still do them, is different and it plays out differently. And that kind of structure becomes a different thing each time I'm going through that, because I still don't ever want to go into the cold water, but I want what's on the other side.
You bet. No, and I have the same experience. So I'm still doing the cold plunge as well. Not something I'm going to give up. Yeah. Right? Reconnect. You have me for life. Sorry.
Both of us.
You're never getting rid of this mug. But what it is, I have to frame the pain every time I go. And, some days I'm not there. I show up, though. I make a commitment to myself and I will show up.
Yeah. Again,
it's about choosing it and holding myself accountable. And that's something that I really do believe that not a lot of people know how to do.
Yeah.
They don't know how to be accountable to themselves before anybody else. They'll be accountable. They will fulfill commitments to everybody else in their life.
Yeah.
Because that pleaser muscle kicks in, or that hypervigilance kicks in.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little hyperachiever too. However, they'll let themselves fall through the cracks.
Sure.
And so that's the first challenge, right? Keeping ourselves accountable to ourselves and choosing the pain.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. I'm not just speaking to a cold plunge.
Sure.
Facing the things that we have to face to get through and to develop resilience means choosing the pain.
Yeah.
It means not developing an avoidance mindset where we're just going to use what we have to cope and muscle through. That's when we're withstanding the storm. Being the storm. When I am the storm, that means I'm choosing to weather this. I'm choosing how I'm going to come out on the other side of this. I can't control the context or what's happening, but I am going to choose how I come out on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's the real power in these conversations, is recognizing that we take the experience perspective, right?
Yep.
It's a spotlight that you have.
Yeah.
I'm bringing a different perspective of resilience, where almost from a practitioner mindset and practice and, anecdotal stories and whatever is useful for people to understand. There's no one way through this.
No.
There's no clean way through this. There's no not messy way to get through this. But it's the most important work that you'll ever do in your entire life.
Yeah.
Is developing personal resilience, developing the deep root structures that not only go deep, but they go wide, and they tap into other people and other resources that are required. So that's why we're here.
Yeah. And I'm so excited for the many, many, many more conversations that we will be able to have. And I think a big component that we'll talk more about is how we see the storm too.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge aspect of our ability to think we can conquer it, or know that we can conquer it, or have confidence in conquering it, or going through it, or becoming it, or whatever that looks like for the people. But how we see it matters. And being able to do a perspective shift, being able to find the linchpin that really not only gets you through the storm, but almost propels you to utilize the storm, right? I'm not just going to weather it. I'm going to become it. And I'm going to use this force to do great, amazing things that truly impact the world in the most positive of ways.
I love it.
So this is going to be amazing, and many, many more conversations to come. We hope that you guys all got at least a little bit from this episode, and that you can also come back and listen again and be able to see the different perspectives for your own storms or anything that you're facing right now. So we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you for joining. We hope today's episode has ignited a pivotal spark in you and uncovered a fresh perspective that reminds you hold the power to transform every storm into your strength. Share this journey with your tribe and re-listen to uncover hidden gems. Until next time, keep building your resilience, and when you face the storm, don't just weather it, become it.